The Dallas Stars are into the second round of the playoffs. That's the good news. The bad news is, I bet you knuckleheads can't tell me the last time a local DFW sports team won a second round series or playoff game. John?
I would go 1943 Fort Worth Cats.
Close, but no cigar, Gil.
Can't be the Cowboys because I can't remember that far back.
That was 95 the last time they won two in a season.
I know.
So the answer is your
Texas Rangers.
The last time we've had a second round winner. It's been too long, but maybe the Stars will win this year. We'll see. PressBox DFW Live. It is episode 8. We made it 8 episodes, Gil.
Wow.
I didn't think we'd make it 8 minutes.
That's longer than a lot of TV series that we...
I thought it would be like 8 seconds on a bucking bull at the rodeo. It is Gil Leberton, John Henry, Richie Witt, host of PressBox DFW Live. A lot on the show today, including the iconic voice of your Dallas Cowboys. Brad Sham is going to join us. We're going to talk the weird, and wacky, and wonderful Joey Gallo. I went to the Stars game last night. I made it through a whole hockey game.
Good for you.
I made it through an entire hockey game. Where's my trophy for that?
By popular demand.
I don't know about that. And we'll also get to the greatest and the worst draft picks in Dallas Cowboys history. Again, follow us PressBoxDFW.com. Read all of our stories each week, and watch and or listen to us right here at PressBox DFW Live on Tuesdays. Did you guys watch any of the Stars last night?
I watched a lot of the Stars last night.
Did you watch it, or were you multitasking? Because it's hard. It's hard to watch on TV.
No. Well, once you start watching in a game like that, you're riveted.
I was multitasking, but
if I was watching on TV, I would be multitasking.
But it took a back seat to whatever else I was doing.
Well, let's have Hockey Talk take a back seat, because it is the iconic voice of your Dallas Cowboys. It's our old friend Brad Sham. Mr. Sham, how are you doing, sir?
Mr. Witt, I'm doing very well, thank you. How's everybody else doing?
We're doing great.
Seems like we're making it.
Good to see you, Brad.
41st year with the team. How many people, Brad, get to call radio football games on radio from their own booth, the Brad Sham radio booth, AT&T Stadium? That's pretty cool. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, usually you have to be dead, so this is pretty good.
It's kind of what I was hinting at. All right, let's talk some Cowboys, shall we? So, what are the pressing needs for this team? I know they don't pick until 58, but if it's going to be a successful draft, the Cowboys are going to get blank. What do you want?
I want a defensive tackle, and I think a safety would be good, and I won't reach for any of them, because on Friday, if they don't draft on Thursday, and I don't think they will, then even on Friday, in my opinion, if you reach, the only way I'm reaching is if the best player on my board is a quarterback. Then I'm going to go to the next player. If the best player on my board is either a linebacker or an offensive lineman, I'm looking at how big the gap is between that player and the next best player who isn't one of those things. And I think that you just still have to take the best football player available. If they're fortunate, on Friday, that guy, in my opinion, would be a safety or a defensive tackle. And I still think defensive tackle is the biggest need they have.
More so than a safety?
In my opinion, I think the way they rotate them and move guys around, and guys get hurt, and I don't. They played a lot of snaps. They won a division and played in the playoffs with guys like Daniel Ross and Karan Reed playing a lot of snaps. Now, Reed they haven't re-signed. Ross they have. He's a useful player, but they're trying to be better than they were, and so I think that you've got. I think that they need more safeties. They need another good safety, but I don't think they have a crying need. I think defensive tackle is a position that gives me a little pause.
In free agency now, they signed George Iloka.
Yep, I liked him. I liked him 2 years ago. They did too, and he'll help.
Yes.
But they signed him to a 1-year deal, and they unquestionably need a guy. If they take a defensive tackle in the second round for the sake of argument and a safety in the third round, that doesn't mean they passed up the need for a safety.
Exactly.
So, or if they get a guy in the fourth round, that he might, for crying out loud, they really like Xavier Woods, and I think they should, and he was a sixth rounder. So you never know what'll happen. And if the best player is a safety, it won't hurt my feelings at all. And that might be the case because the depth there seems to be better, but Jimmy Johnson and Dave Wanstedt were the first ones I heard articulate very clearly that you build a defense from front to back, inside out. And about 3 years ago, maybe less, I was talking to Johnson and I said, you guys said this in 1989 and 90. Is it still true the way the game is played today? And he said, yep, he thinks it is, and I do too. And I think I'm not talking about sacks. I'm talking about being disruptive.
Yep.
They've got good linebackers, and their linebackers need disruption in front of them to be able to really play their game. So my opinion is that's a higher priority than a safety. But if they stay at 58 or move up, and the best guy is a safety, then that won't hurt my feelings.
Yeah, but I remember what you're saying, Brad. Those teams that I covered in the 90s and you called, of course, you had the triplets, you had the Hall of Famers, you had the sexy players. But on defense, it was they went 8 deep basically with disruptors on that defensive line with Leon Lett and Tony Casillas and Jimmy Jones. Even it was those guys that were
Chad
just as
Hennings and Jim Jeffcoat, Tony Tolbert.
The fact that we remember them and they all, they weren't full-time starters, but those kind of players are what helped that team win a Super Bowl as much as anybody else.
And I think it's still the case today. I still think even though the changes in the rules and the explosive expansion of college offenses into the NFL to put more of the spread game in vogue and being employed, have emphasized the passing game. I still think pressure on the quarterback, not sacks. It's hard to sack a guy if he's getting rid of the ball in 2.3 seconds. But if you make him get rid of it on the wrong foot or in a position he doesn't want to get rid of it in, that's the whole thing. Make the guy make a bad decision, and I think that you have a better chance to do that from front to back.
Defensive linemen in general, you got a name for us in specific?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. There's too many things that can happen. I would be less surprised than anything if the kid at Central Florida seems to be intriguing, but I'd be less surprised than anything if they moved up in the second round from 58, but it depends on who's there and who they like.
Sure. Iconic radio voice of the Cowboys, Brad Sham, joining us on PressBox DFW Live.
Brad, how much weight would you put into the group of guys that they've had in as guests recently?
Gil, if you study the last few years, the top 2 or 3 choices usually have come from the group that visited, not exclusively, but usually. But the bottom 6 guys have not, overwhelmingly. So if we agree that every player you pick is important because you get Saturday players the way the draft is constructed today that might be starters for you, then that visit thing doesn't really help you very much. But it does seem to point to both position and individuals that they're most interested in the top 2 or 3 rounds.
Brad Sham joining us here on PressBox DFW Live. Let's move to some off-season moves, if you will. I love, it wasn't a trade, but if it was just a switch, give me Randall Cobb over Cole Beasley, younger, faster, more productive. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me why. What do you think about that move?
The only hesitation I have about Cobb is his durability.
Yes.
If he doesn't get hurt, then you can certainly make a case for Randall Cobb being every bit as or more than Cole Beasley. He has had some injury problems in the last year or so, and that would give you a little bit of pause. It'd be one reason that he'd be available.
Absolutely.
I think Cole Beasley was a tremendous asset to this team, and really made some big plays, some unforgettable plays, and you would say that he'd be a very hard guy to replace, except they didn't draft him, and nobody else did either. And I had a conversation with somebody in the personnel department in December trying to project who they thought they had a chance to sign, and I said to this fellow, well, you might have to go find another Cole Beasley just exactly the way you did the last one. And he said, yep, that might have to happen. And that would mean after the draft. So especially keeping in mind where Beasley came from, I think that you can make a case for Cobb potentially being an upgrade, but he's got to be on the field because Cole Beasley was rarely off the field. He was really dependable.
You've got to think Robert Quinn was a huge addition, too.
You know, I do, and there's a reason that Dolphins didn't want to keep him.
True.
I mean, you know, we all fall
but
in
other
love
people wanted it.
as fans. We all fall in love with what the agents sell us.
Yeah.
Oh, let's get that guy. Well, wait a minute. If he's that available, what's wrong with him?
There were a few teams that wanted him, though.
Are there?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
How many places did he visit?
Well, I don't know that.
Well, there was a lot of talk about him visiting
Sean
New
Payton
Orleans,
liked him. Yeah,
but I
Sean
don't
Payton.
think he did.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. Look, in March, from mid-February to late April in the NFL, the loudest voices, and you guys with newspaper backgrounds know this way better than me or anybody listening. The loudest voices are the ones coming from whispers of agents.
Absolutely. Amen.
And they are lying.
They're selling. That's how
It's
they sell.
it's very frequently the same thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. All right.
And by the way, that doesn't mean that teams aren't lying. Once you hit March, I presume that everything publicly said
Right.
by any executive in the NFL is a falsehood.
All right. Couple quick.
And that's just how they do business. But the agents are the one that create most of the noise, and they say it to the media, and they whisper it, and they say, now don't quote me, this is off the record, but I'm telling you, we're visiting Green Bay, Buffalo, and San Diego.
I'm here.
And then it's in print, and then it's true.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple quick hitters, and we'll let Brad Sham run. DeMarcus Lawrence gets locked up. We like that. The Dak dilemma is next.
Not a dilemma.
Okay.
You got a better choice?
I do not, but is he a $30 million
Then it's not a
quarterback?
dilemma. Sign him. Move on.
Wow, that's pretty quick. In your esteemed opinion, Dak Prescott can lead this Cowboys team presently constituted to a Super Bowl?
Maybe.
And there's the dilemma.
Do you have a better alternative?
Absolutely not.
The guy is unusual
There we go.
in his intangibles, and that's worth a lot. I would be more comfortable answering the question after I see a different looking offense with some different looking personnel. I will say this: year and a half, not just 1 year, year and a half, the guy's off the charts. They have a tsunami combined with an earthquake, combined with a volcano erupting in Atlanta one day in 2017. For the next year, second half of 17, first half of 18, he's a different guy.
True.
He's making bad decisions because I think the protection issues got in his head. Now you have Des Bryant in and out, Witten here and gone. You've got line coaches changing. You've got who's the wide receiver at the start of 18. Now, how do you do from the middle of 18? So we've got one guy for a year and a half, and maybe the second half of 18 after Cooper came and the offensive line coaching changed.
Yep.
And you got a different guy for the second half of 17 and the first half of 18. So because I'm an optimist, I believe that the real Dak Prescott is the first half of 16 and the second and the whole year of 16, the first half of 17.
Yep.
And part of the reason I believe that is I've just not heard other players talk about the leadership and the devotion they have to the guy since Aikman was here, the way these players talk about Prescott. Has he missed some throws? Yeah, he's got to be better. He's in his third year. But I'm pretty sure this is true. By the time last season ended, at that point in Romo's career, he hadn't thrown a pass yet. So, and everybody loved Romo till he played. Then he didn't win a Super Bowl, so they hated him until he left, and they loved him again. And Aikman will tell you that Y.A. Tittle told him that is the bell curve of the life of a quarterback. So until someone says we don't need Prescott, we've got this guy who's better. Richie, we saw what it was like between Staubach and Aikman.
Did we ever? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to see that anymore. I'd rather have Prescott.
Agree with that. And from Aikman to Romo, we didn't particularly like that group either.
Exactly.
Do we have a dilemma? I'm just kidding. Do we have a dilemma with Jason Witten? What is he going to look exactly? I'm kidding.
No.
Is he going to look exactly the same as when he left? We're not going to know a difference, are we?
Well, we're not going to. We won't really know that until we see him get on the field. But and I don't mean in OTAs, but I know what's in his head, and I know what I see when I look in his eyes. And what I think is that he will be better than he was at the end of 17. I think, this is my opinion, I think he was really frustrated by the offense and the way it was going. I think that played a role in his decision to retire. I think he's revitalized. He had a great relationship with Kitna when he was here. He likes Kellen Moore. I think this offense has a chance to be a lot more creative than a lot of people think. And if Witten doesn't do anything more than to help them improve on third down and in the red zone on the field, what he adds in addition off the field will be well worth his coming back.
Absolutely. Brad Sham, I always appreciate the time, my man. Have a good one.
You bet, guys. Good to talk to you.
All right, there's the iconic voice of the Dallas Cowboys, Brad Sham. I love Brad. He'll give you his opinion. Not just the facts.
Yeah, it's not the House. It's not the House opinion.
That's why he's been around for 41 years. He's fantastic. All right, PressBox DFW Live. Watch us right here weekly and read our writing daily at PressBoxDFW.com. Next up, what are we doing? Oh, we're doing the crazy names. These guys, you're telling me, John Henry, actually got drafted in the NFL, including the Duke. Hey, welcome to Double Dribble, everybody. Here's your open. Hey, welcome to Double Dribble, everybody. Here's your open. This open brought to you by What the What? Who are these guys? And that looks like Davey O'Brien, but
it is Davey O'Brien.
You have such an eclectic collection.
Well, I figured I would bring two controversial figures that are emblematic of how controversial PressBox DFW is.
Oh, are we ever?
Douglas MacArthur, which I bought on eBay some years ago, and Andrew Jackson. You can't get any more controversial than that.
He's on the $20 bill, but he's also a lightning rod.
For now.
Squeeze Douglas in a little more so we can see him there.
Yeah, squeeze him in some more.
Excuse me, Andrew.
Scoot over, Andrew.
He would not like being squeezed out. That I can tell you.
Now, real quick, why would you say, hey, there's a bust of Douglas MacArthur. Let me buy that.
Well, he's one of my favorite characters in history.
Of course he is. Okay. That's all I wanted to hear. All right, what do we got for the draft this week?
So we are doing Double Dribble right now. Is that what it's
Hey, welcome to Double Dribble. Go ahead with your content.
Go.
Well, this week I want to say, first of all, it's brought to you by Mama's Pizza. Serving good pizza, ridiculously good pizza since 1968. So, piggybacking off the draft, I went back and looked at guys that were drafted that 40 years later you never would believe could have possibly been in the NFL draft.
All right.
We know about Dave Winfield.
Yes.
We know he was drafted by, I think, three major professional sports: the Hawks and the NBA, the Padres, of course, and the Vikings. Who probably could have used him? Terry Crews, the actor, who you see all over the place. Goldberg, I'm happy to say I've never seen
Wrestling?
as a wrestler,
Goldberg?
but he was one. And Kirk Gibson, who might have been a good receiver.
Michigan State.
Michigan State
Yeah.
had a very good year. Had 22 touchdowns his last 3 years and led the Big Ten in receptions as a senior. So that leads us to guys that you look at now and you're like, I cannot believe that guy was drafted.
Such as?
Carl Lewis,
Yeah.
the famed American athlete,
Sure.
the heir to
He would not have been a good football player.
no.
Well, Ronaldo Nehemiah.
I was about to say, Nehemiah,
Right.
he played for the
actually
Niners.
played,
yeah.
right.
Right.
And he wanted to play. I don't think Carl ever wanted to get hit or anything like that.
I think this was more. He was selected in the 12th round by the Cowboys,
Right.
and I think it was more PR than it was
Yeah.
was
You think?
than it was
You think
looking
Carl
than it was
really
looking
done
for.
that?
Well, Bob Hayes was another one who they but although he did play football,
He kind of made the Hall of Fame. Yeah.
he did.
The only contact Carl ever had was handing off a baton. Well,
baton- well-
he didn't even picking a
having it handed
baton
to
out
him.
of
Yeah.
somebody's hand. That's it.
Yes, exactly. And that is an important handoff. We will admit. Did you know
Who
that?
else?
Did you know that Quinn Buckner was drafted in the NFL?
I did not know that. Did he really?
Former Mavericks.
Former
coach.
Mavericks coach. He was taken with the 393rd pick by the Redskins, the 14th round, 1976, the same year that he led
Indiana.
to the perfect season.
I don't know if he could play football, but I watched him coach the Mavericks to back-to-back seasons of 11 and 13 wins.
Yeah, he would have had a much better NFL career, I
Lord.
think, than
I
coaching.
believe I lived through that. You kidding me? 11 and 13. 13 was an improvement.
Well, he was also picked in the NBA draft ahead of Alex English and Robert Parrish, who had
Yeah, he
Who
played
had-
on the Indiana's undefeated team.
yeah,
right?
oh yeah.
Wow.
Pat Riley.
Yeah.
Another Cowboys pick, right?
He was another
Yeah.
Cowboys pick, 285th in 1967, round 11. I did not know that he actually did play football at Kentucky.
He
I
did.
can't.
He was a two-sport.
What was his
Athlete.
position?
He was
be,
a receiver.
I had about to say he had to be a
I
receiver.
wonder if he had the hair back then. You know,
No, look at him.
He's right
He didn't
there.
have
the
hair.
Wolfman hair.
Look at him though. He's pretty jacked.
He
for
is jacked in there.
1967. You kidding me?
Send that man for your analysis.
That's before weights were invented, and he was already jacked.
Okay, one I had no idea. 1972.
Okay,
This man was 64 years old.
Andrew Jackson.
He would have been great in the NFL.
I'm sure he would.
He'd have been fantastic in the NFL. This man was 64 years old, and I'm sure that Norm Van Brocklin was sick and tired of being in this 17-round draft by this time. And he said, he stood up in his Atlanta's war room and said, "Do we want the roughest, toughest SOB in this draft?"
Yes.
And everybody agreed, yes, we do. And so he turned in the name John Wayne.
He did not.
He did.
No. You're serious? The
He-
Duke.
he-
That guy got drafted.
He absolutely did. He
There
absolutely
he is.
did.
Come on.
He submitted the pick John Wayne
There he is talking about the 3-4.
from Fort
alignment.
Apache State.
Tommy Nobis is
From
not-
where?
Fort
Fort
Apache State, which was
No, he went to
Apache
college.
well,
He went
actually
to Southern Cal.
He went to Southern Cal, but Fort Apache was one of his noted movies.
Oh, right. Excuse us.
I was totally thrown off
You
by his
culturally,
resume. I was like, what?
to the culturally illiterate. Come on now. Actually, I didn't know that till
Now,
yesterday.
that was a 100% PR stunt, right?
Absolutely. And Pete Rozelle said he used his veto power. and
He
said,
did?
We're not. No, you can't do that. You
That's
can't
when
do
they
that.
were like, all right, the draft is too long.
So
people."
instead, they took with the 431st pick a running back from USC named Bill Holland.
Okay.
Anybody remember Bill Holland?
Do not.
There's a good reason, because he played as many snaps as the Duke did in the
did?
NFL.
Mm-hmm.
0.
So seriously, Pete Rozelle, they handed the card and Pete goes, "Nah, try again." I mean,
We're
can
not-
you imagine
we're
that
not-
today?
We're not doing that.
I'm looking at, those guys can't be as bad as the Cowboys 95 draft.
Oh, yes,
in
they
general.
can. We're going to get to that. Wits End today, we'll look at the best and
That's
worst
a tease
picks of
for
all
later.
time.
That's
Yeah.
a tease for later.
All right, there's some double dribble.
You want to
for
go right into Joey Gallo?
We're going to backtrack because somebody jumped ahead and put the double dribble out of
Yeah.
order this week. I think his name was Richie Witt.
I think so.
Now let's do a little
wasn't our
pregame
producer.
meal. He's the weirdest, and he's wonderful, but he's one of the weirdest players in baseball. Joey Gallo next.
Pregame meal, take 2.
Yeah, I just batted out of order today, didn't I? Sorry
all
about it. I
right.
turned in the wrong
That's
lineup
right.
card.
But it doesn't count unless they catch it. See, just like in real baseball.
I think Ziggy caught it pretty good.
Okay.
He knew. All right.
Thinking
we're
on his
gonna
feet
talk-
very
we're gonna
well
talk-
over there, Ziggy.
Let's talk about the American League Player of the Week, who, as it turns out, is none other than Joey Gallo. And it's interesting. He's he's such an enigma. To
You
a lot
like
of
him.
people here. I've told you. I said
He's liked
I
him
think
for several
gonna
years.
I think he's going to be a star.
You like him, John?
I'm very mild on him.
Really?
You like
I think
Douglas
he-
MacArthur or Joey Gallo better?
That's a no-brainer for me. Douglas
Well, I
MacArthur.
like Joey.
Douglas MacArthur finds his way to the Philippines. That I can tell you.
Yeah, Joey can't apparently.
He can hit a ball there.
Yeah, that's true.
To me, Joey Gallo is the he's the exhibit A on my theory that young players improve. Young players who are smart enough to make the adjustments, to listen to what the coaches are telling them, that take the time and look at the video, that realize that the pitcher has a plan. There's Joey. Joey in his
Oh,
his
yeah.
little
That's
league
right, I
days,
remember that.
and the guy next to him happens to be Bryce Harper.
Heard of that guy. I wonder what their contracts were on that team.
I know. Joey will get his someday. But they both grew up in Las Vegas.
That's a crazy.
But there's
picture
nothing
of him.
Vegas about Joey Gallo. There's nothing Vegas about him
true.
except the balls that he hits.
Yeah.
And I've heard so many people, learned baseball men, fellow writers, who would just, I'd see them at spring training, and they would Joey would come to the plate, and they'd go, nah, Dave Kingman, Adam Dunn,
That's me
totally
though.
dismissing. Look at that.
Other than being a learned baseball man, I'm with you. I just don't.
But
Can he obliterate the ball? Is he?
What do
are
you
we
want him to do?
fascinated by his exit velocity?
What do you want him to do? Do you want him to hit 280?
Can I give you a couple of crazy stats that just make me
Okay.
uncomfortable about him?
Go ahead.
Joey Gallo is the first player in Major League Baseball history. Now, they've been playing baseball for a while, couple of years, I would say. He's the first player ever to get to 50 homers before he got to 50 singles. There's just something weird about that. I mean,
Well, they're putting 5 people on the right side of the infield. That's one of the reasons.
so is
He
that
would have a lot-
impressive or is that insulting? Is it not? What is that, John? I got 50 homers before I hit 50 singles.
Well,
As a major league
That's insanity. Well, and
Well,
he just
it
had
is
his
insanity.
Well,
first sacrifice fly.
And his first sacrifice fly in
Well, that's an
1,337
anomaly.
at bats.
That's an anomaly, and they teased him about it, and I bet he'll have more.
How
But
is that possible?
well, I think that the argument that you're making here is, should he have less strikeouts and more base hits?
That
more
would be a
singles?
good, that'd be a good start.
Because
Sure.
there's no question that he can reach the fence. There's no question he could probably put the ball through the fence, if
Sure.
he hit. But a lot of it nowadays, now they have the data. A lot of it has to do with exit velocity, launch angle,
No,
those
not
kind
interested.
of things.
Don't care.
No. This is how the modern ball players are being taught. They know what they're.
But you're an old school baseball guy. You don't
I am.
care about exit velocity. That's like saying the Mavericks drafted a guy who's the hardest
Well, it
dunker
helps
in
me.
college.
It
So
helps
what?
me. Well, I agree. It helps me, and the real shortcoming in analytics is in its predictive qualities.
Yes.
People that go out and buy baseball prospectus that are where they're guessing what kind of season their fantasy team will have, or I'm not going to say they're wasting their money, but good luck.
That's the
but,
Gil I like right there.
But
Got to rein him back in.
but I do think that it helps me understand what kind of player Joey Gallo is more. And a lot of the new math in baseball helps me to understand what kind of players they are. My whole point is that these young players can improve on that, and they can expand their skill set and their numbers and their.
If you're right, and I hope you are, that he will take to coaching and he'll look at the five outfielders playing against and
He's
learn
smart.
to hit to the left. That's one thing. We know he has the skill set because he did this. I think this was Sunday's game.
Oh.
He's got the ability to hit a 400-foot home run. He's also got the ability, we found out, to hit a 400-foot pop-up. Did y'all see this play?
Yes, we did.
This is against the Astros on Sunday.
This was in the air 7.5 seconds.
Look at the shift. Look how far this ball falls from these knuckleheads.
Look,
They
they're
have
not even the same zip code.
I mean, did you say 7.5 seconds? That ball was.
7.5 seconds.
I mean, if
That's
it's a
what they said.
400-foot home run, it's not in the air 7.5 seconds, right?
No,
No.
not
This
his.
had to be a 400-foot pop-up then.
What was the exit velocity on that ball?
Look at how.
I don't know.
Tom Grieve, if you were watching, Tom Grieve said, "I've never seen a ball hit higher in my life," and he's been calling Rangers games for 30 years.
He got a bat flip out of it, too.
But they have the shift on, they're pointing, and then
Yeah,
I think
he almost hit Hunter
That's
Pence with
Correa,
the-
the shortstop. And he's like,
Yeah, there's an all-star
"Help!" He's
shortstop.
like,
This fourth outfielder did not help
It's
on
like
that play.
Keystone Cops are all running like in
That's
the
an
general
amazing- yeah.
direction of the ball. But that's
an amazing
That's his
play.
immense skill, and I don't want to say talent, but he can do crazy things with the bat.
Well,
in his
you
hand.
should see him you got to see him this time.
Oh,
at batting
other players
practice.
stop for watching
Batting
batting
practice
practice.
and surprise
Yeah.
is a show in
He hits
unto
cars
itself.
all the time, out of the stadium, and people that are just parking.
Oh, on Greenway
getting out.
Drive,
He just kills them.
Well,
Kills the
kids run out as you drive into to the camp.
Yep.
The kids run out on Greenway Drive, and you have to be on the alert
Yeah.
because they're all going after
Now-
Joey's home run ball.
Now, my question about him and players like him, hitters like that, is in this new era, can you teach a guy like that a two-strike mentality approach to,
I think his two-strike mentality is getting better. I really do. I think he's no longer an automatic out with two strikes on him.
It's true. He's hitting 280 this year. If he hits 280,
Well,
he's a transcendent player.
oh
no
my
doubt.
God, yes. And that was after, what did we
I don't
say,
think
a
he's-
7 for, well, he's not a 280 hitter, but
No,
I don't think he's going to hit.
if he's a
280.
240
he might,
hitter,
but he's not a 202 hitter either. If he's that, then I don't think we can deal with him.
they're going to keep pitching him to hit into the shift.
Sure.
And he's going to have to figure it out. But I'm not one of these people that thinks, well, if he just bunts, he'll get a few more. The other team would love for him to bunt.
Would they?
They'd love for him to be on first base.
I don't know. Okay.
You know what?
We can take this up another time, but think about that. You just said the other team pitching to a 202 career hitter would love for him to bunt. I'd love for him to make an out 80% of the time myself. But there's Joey Gallo. And again, I got a really good question
Player of
for
the
the
week.
panel. Why am I the last ones to realize I don't need headphones anymore? Every week.
I don't know.
I don't understand what's going on.
I think you like the echo.
This is the pregame meal, Gil. Where are we this week in the press box?
Well, we are where you were last night.
Yes.
Where were you? Where were you
I was
sitting?
fortunate enough. I know actually
Watch this.
one of the chiropractors for the team. I was like right behind the bench. How about
Of
that?
course.
How about
Of
that?
course
for
you
big
were.
timing?
Of course you
If I'm
were.
going to go to a hockey game.
I think I
do
saw
it
you
right.
harassing. Yeah, I think I saw you harassing the Predators.
I was yelling,
Penalty
line shift,
guys.
line change, let's go.
banging on the
Banging on the glass. Absolutely. All right, there's some Gallo for you on PressBox
Good
DFW
pregame meal.
Live. Next up, who's the best draft pick in the history of the Cowboys, and who's the worst? Hey, look, I took my headphones off, enjoying the show. Welcome to Wits End,
Here again.
brought to you by the good folks at McKinneyDentist.com. Dr. Marvin Berlin is the big cheese up there. It's where I get my teeth did, and where Mike McDonald's bobblehead goes also to get his teeth did. It's on Virginia Street, my old neighborhood up in McKinney, McKinneyDentist.com. So the Stars and the Preds last night. Gil, you went to a reunion arena back in the day when it was Stanley
Oh,
Cup.
yeah.
The place was, they called it, that's a loud barn, and that's hockey parlance for you. It was buzzing last night, though. It was pretty good.
Came across great on TV.
It did, because it was loud, and it was getting to be, in the 90s, that was the place to be. It was a Stars game. All the Cowboys would go there. And last night I looked up and there's UFC Hall of Famer Chuck Liddell. He's there. Troy Aikman was there. Of course, he's been going to games since 1993. And then we looked up on the Jumbotron in the first period, and we saw these two knuckleheads.
I know.
That's, of course, Dak Prescott.
Owen Wilson and
feeding
They become
Zeke Elliott.
they become part of the cult.
Now, there's something kind of cool about them just being goofy 20-somethings, right?
Sure.
Because there's nothing scripted about that. I mean, I know that's Zeke's bit.
it's not like going off to Cabo on the off week.
But
Amen.
Good point
Bingo.
about that. Just too bad the Stars weren't playing that week. They might have stayed in
That'd
town.
have been a good excuse for those boys back then. So, Stars Preds Game 6, and it just kind of reminded me that how fun playoff hockey is. Because a regular season game, I'll admit it, there's no way I'm watching a regular season hockey game. I wouldn't even go. But that last night, from about the middle of the third period on, when it's 1-1, and you knew probably the next goal either forces a game 7 or you win a series, that's edge of your seat. Like,
Yeah,
I
it
could
was
feel
good.
myself being tense, and I wasn't even invested. Do you guys get the same way about a game like that?
That really was a testament to what people say that the Stanley Cup playoffs were the best playoffs
Yeah.
in pro sports, and it really exemplified that. I thought that was great, and it's only going to get better as the rounds progress.
Well, the players are so, I mean, they skate so well. The up and down, the change of direction is so rapid, you can't afford to look away.
Right.
You know, and thank God for high definition television, right? You
Yeah.
know, where you can finally see the puck. Richie, you covered the Mavericks for a long time.
Yep.
How would you compare the atmosphere at an NBA playoff game and an NHL? I'm not asking you to say one's better than the other, but what's different about it?
It's louder at a hockey game because the music they play. I mean, they're playing rock and roll hard like Toadies and
Pantera.
Like
Pantera.
Like the NBA, is it?
It's pretty
No,
loud.
NBA's playing a different rap, and literally the volume is lower. They play during the possessions.
Yeah.
But when there's a stoppage of a Stars game, it's a rock concert breaks out.
More heavy
and there's
metal.
a mosh pit going on. I mean, it's
Moody Madness, I bet was pretty.
Moody Madness
would
was.
have been-
Stay tuned.
Would have been
because
unique.
Later this week, I've got a story about the 35th anniversary.
Oh,
of
I
Moody
can't
Madness.
Can't wait to
So,
see it. Can't wait
Yeah.
to see it.
I think we have video of the game-winning goal last night at the end of the game here. This was just a crazy scene. That's Jamie Benn, and from where I was sitting, he hit the post, and it was so loud. And I thought,
Yeah, you
they're
can-
going to lose right here. And then there's Ben Bishop, who made one of his 47 saves. Again, this is no punting or changing possessions. This is end to end to end. And here's a great pass, and there's
Lots of traffic in front.
Klingberg, who just ends it, and it's just over. All that intensity, and you're nervous, and all of a sudden, boom, and it's half relief and half just crazy exultation. It was
look,
amazing.
look at this.
scene.
4 guys
Yeah.
react to the pass, and Jamie Benn. If there had been a rebound, look where Jamie Benn is.
Yeah,
you know,
and
he's
that's
right.
and that's Tyler Sagan literally jumping over the puck and being like a human shield. Great series, and again, we talked about it at the top. The Stars have not won a second round series since 2008, and they'll now play the St. Louis Blues in the second round. All right, there's some Stars for you. I will go back if I get those tickets again. I don't know about the press box, but I will go back to the front row.
different
seats. It's
view
pretty
up
good.
there.
Oh, the press
absolutely.
box, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
long
Yeah.
way.
All right, let's talk some Cowboys draft here in Wits End on PressBox DFW Live. Are you draft nicks? Do you guys get into like mock drafts and get excited about all that kind of stuff?
Completely
No.
bored by him.
Well, good.
Mock
Me too.
draft.
I'm the same way. I mean, at the Star
I like
Telegram,
to-
I had to do a mock draft. I was
Right,
like, this
right.
is such. I
If,
just
if,
don't
if my man Douglas MacArthur ain't sitting through him, I'm not sitting through him. That I can.
like to see he had a literal draft, like an 18-year-old, all of them. The Cowboys again pick 58 overall. They're not until the second round. That makes them they're not even on the clock until Friday. Do you watch Thursday? Or do you just hear
Sure.
about it? You still watch it?
Sure, I want
Yeah.
to see who number 1 is.
Yeah. I'm interested about Kyler Murray.
Yeah. By the time the Cowboys pick at 58, the Eagles will have made 3 choices. The Giants would have made 3 choices. The
And the
Redskins
Raiders-
would have made 2 choices. That's their division. Everybody in their division will
Okay.
make a combined 8 picks before the Cowboys are even on
I think the
clock.
Raiders will have made it like 6 or 7 picks.
Yeah,
by
because of
then.
Khalil Mack and because
Right.
of Amari Cooper. They own the first round. So I made this list earlier this week at PressBoxDFW.com of the worst and best picks all time in Cowboys history. Did you guys check this out?
Sure did.
Oh yeah.
Did you have a problem with? I know, Gil, you're a big fan of Rod Hill back in the 80s.
Right. I remember the day he was drafted.
Drafted 25th overall in 1982, never started a game. That's a flop. I mean, that's not even
That's a
good enough
flop.
to flop, right?
That's a bad flop.
I'll just go through some of the worst. David LaFleur, the tight end.
We have one person to blame for that.
Yes, we do.
And you
Troy
know who
Aikman
it is.
handpicked David LaFleur to replace Novacek, and no, thank you. Bobby Carpenter, of course, was
Ooh.
Bill Parcells'
know.
18th overall.
I know.
Shante Carver, we had him in 94, got drafted ahead of Larry Allen. Morris Claiborne, to me, was a bad pick because the Cowboys traded
Traded
up
up, yeah.
to 6. He wasn't horrible, but when you think what the Cowboys went through to get him, no, thank you.
I'm a. as
4
you know,
interceptions in 5 years for
As you
a
know,
guy
I'm
you
an-
traded for a playmaker.
Yeah.
That's not a playmaker.
I'm an alumnus of
course
the
you are.
same school that Mo Claiborne went to.
You can say it. It's
and,
LSU.
And he was the most.
Trying to hide it.
And-
distancing.
And I attended the SEC championship game that year.
Yes.
As a fan, and he was the most dynamic player on the field.
I thought it was a great pick. I thought it was a
And
great
this is
trade and a
Honey
great pick
Badger
at the
was
time.
on that team.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's right.
You know,
Tyrone.
he was the most dynamic player there, and I'm stunned that he wasn't a better.
But he just
hasn't
wasn't.
been a better.
He wasn't. 4
He's
interceptions.
still playing, right?
He's still playing,
With
but
the
4
Jets?
interceptions
Yeah.
in 5 years is
And they they identified him as the player they wanted, and they went up and got him, and
Yeah.
at the time I
Yeah.
was fine with it. Top 10, some of the best draft picks
Mm-hmm.
in Cowboys history. You mentioned him earlier, Bob Hayes. Again, he was just an Olympic sprinter out of Florida A&M, and Gil Brandt found him, and that's one of the reasons Gil Brandt's in the Hall of Fame.
Well, how many rounds did they have back in those days?
Bob Hayes was picked in the 7th round.
7th.
I think they had 12 back
Well, that's
then.
high. That's good.
But they had 17 back in the days
72.
of John Wayne.
Yeah.
Now, see,
17 rounds.
I think you have
You
Tony
imagine.
Dorsett low on your list.
You think he should be higher than that?
I think it should be higher than that.
Might be the best pick of all time.
Because they had to trade to get the second pick, and then they picked him. They got Rookie of the Year, Super Bowl champion, Hall of Fame running back.
Right.
Right.
But is but he was the second overall pick. I
Right.
factor that in.
Right.
It wasn't like they reached for him. They didn't steal him from somebody. They went up and got their guy. And again, they get credit for that. But somebody like Larry Allen, 46th overall out of Sonoma State.
Right.
You got to do your homework.
That is-
And when his name gets announced, your fan base is going, what do we just do?
Sonoma
Sonoma
State?
State. And then next thing you know, 11
What is
Pro
it?
Bowls.
You know,
and
did
Super
he major
Bowls.
in wine? Wine.
Tiny,
grape,
yes, in
grape-
tiny California, but I think it turned out pretty well. I got Zach Martin on the list, not only because of who Zach Martin is. Of course, he's a dominant offensive lineman. He's made the Pro Bowl every year.
Team leader.
But remember how close that pick was, 16th overall in 2014, of
To,
being you-know-who.
Johnny.
Johnny Goofball. So Zach Martin, that pick,
He wants to be John. I think he wants to be called John.
John
not Johnny.
Civilian, I think is what he wants to be now. Not even
Yeah,
Johnny.
John-
Civilian.
And Zach Martin couldn't have done anything for Johnny Manziel.
No, absolutely. And do we agree on the what I think is the best draft pick in Cowboys history? In 1964,
Yeah.
he had a 4-year commitment to the Navy, so he wasn't going
See,
to
that's
come back.
genius. I mean, that's
And you
true
knew if you
genius.
picked this guy, you're going to have to wait. And will he ever even play football? You don't. I mean, who knows? He's going into live combat. You never know if he'll ever come back or not. Cowboys waited till the 10th round, 129th overall. They took a flyer on a guy named Roger Staubach.
Yeah.
Was that
Greatest pick in Cowboys history.
I believe that was the same year that Murchison gave Landry the 10-year
Yes.
contract. So that kind of gave them some
Yes.
security as waiting around for
Yep.
him.
Let's just hope that whoever the Cowboys pick this year will not be on the top 10 worst, which will be hard to do at 58. It's kind of a flyer.
And
pick
who was your
anyway.
worst?
It's controversial because I picked a guy named Scott Appleton. So, in that same draft, by the way, so in 1964, the Cowboys drafted 3 Hall of Famers in the same draft: Bob Hayes, Roger Staubach, and who was the other one in '64 they picked?
Was that Mel Renfro?
Yeah, Mel Renfro.
And Mel Renfro, all in the same draft. But the first pick that year was a guy named Scott Appleton, University of Texas lineman, Outland Trophy winner.
Terrific player.
They picked him 4th overall, and he never played a down in Dallas. Now, they traded him to the Steelers for a receiver named Buddy Dial, but Buddy Dial only scored 2 touchdowns for the Cowboys. Scott Appleton played for the Oilers in the AFL, but was just a backup, never a star.
He didn't sign. I mean, he signed with the Cowboys.
Never signed with the Cowboys.
He
They
signed with
signed
the
with
Oilers.
the
signed with the Oilers.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
But they traded his rights to the Steelers. So Scott Alpin wasn't technically on the field a bust, but if you draft somebody 4th overall and you get, the bottom line is you get 2 touchdowns out of that production, that's a bad pick.
Worst Cowboys draft ever. What would you say?
I'm gonna say 2009.
2009.
2009 they had 12 players and the best player was David Beeler.
Yeah.
Go ahead and top that.
Was David Beeler? Was that the A&M quarterback draft?
Stephen McGee.
Steve
absolutely,
McGee.
Yeah.
Steve McGee.
I mean, if you want to dig in anything, you got a worse draft than that, I'm all ears.
Let's see. Jason Williams, Robert Brewster.
Yeah, go on.
Stop me if you've heard of any of these people. D'Angelo Smith, David Bueller.
Derek Bueller.
See? I mean, these guys didn't even make their roster.
Steven- Mike Mickens. That's Stephen Hodge from TCU. There you go. This is a guy we. But I
didn't make
think
the team.
I'm partial to the 1995 draft.
Lay it on me, but I like what I got. But go ahead.
Which was the thinking at that year, if I remember correctly, or the explanation that they gave was that this was a team that was so complete that it only needed to just tweak the roster a little
I think
bit.
in 95,
I think it was
just left
called
the beat. I
the
think
Dream Scheme.
all they
somebody
the
named
Dream
it.
Scheme.
And
all
our
they
friend,
needed was
Dream Scheme,
all they needed
yes.
was
a
Emmett's
friend of
backup.
ours, Dave, did that.
That's all I thought they needed in 95 was a legitimate backup
But you
to
don't
Emmett.
blow off the draft. Kendall Watkins, Shane Hanna, who later,
yeah.
we would hear that Steven made that pick.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess he stepped into the room. Charlie Williams, Eric Bjornsson, Alundis Bryce, Link Harden. Oh, goodness.
You know what? That'd be
And
a
then,
good
of course,
battle.
in the 7th round, Oscar Sturgis from North Carolina. None of these guys, let's see, only 3 of them played a significant amount of time in the NFL.
We should somehow play like a strategy online stats geek game, and you field a team from 95, I'll field a team from 09. We'll play a couple games.
It'll end up nothing.
It absolutely
Well, I
will.
don't know. Maybe
I
not with
think
the defense.
95 team might dominate that.
I think you're right. All right, there's some Cowboys draft for you here on PressBox DFW Live. The draft Thursday night. We'll have all the coverage next week in episode 9 right here. Next up, it's time to round the bases. Let's head for home. So walk off. Walk off, where each week we answer a question from our throng of followers. Do we have a throng of followers yet, Gil?
Yeah.
We do.
Okay, we have a throng of followers, I'm told, at PressBoxDFW.com and who watch the show each week. We have a question this week from my Facebook. Who are y'all's childhood sports heroes? Which I thought this is really interesting. You got one that comes to mind?
Oh, sure. And he's right. He's right in
Chief
front of me.
Wahoo.
No,
Wow.
not
Oh,
Chief
not
Wahoo.
Chief Wahoo.
That would be Le Grand Orange, Rusty Staub.
Rusty Staub was your guy?
Yeah,
I did not know that.
I got to know Rusty. We went to the same high school. He was older than I was, and I had the same teachers that he did, and became a fan from the very start. And and I wrote the Houston Colt 45s.
Okay.
We could hear their games growing up in New Orleans. I wrote the Colt 45s and said, please send me an autographed picture of Rusty. And about 2 weeks later, I get this gigantic manila envelope in the mail, and it's like thousands of pictures of the same pictures of Rusty and with stuff. And I said, well, I guess I'm the president of the Rusty Star fan club, and I was, and did that, in my early years in high school, and through that I got to meet Rusty and met his mom, Miss Alma, and his family, his brother and his 2 sisters. Got to know his sister. His younger sister was the same age, so I became good friends with him over the years.
What attracted you to Rusty Staub?
He was a legendary high school player.
He was, okay.
He was a legendary high school player. I mean, every place, and then I went on and played ball at Jesuit, and everybody would point out spots. Well, Rusty hit it there.
That's cool.
Rusty hit it there, and he was, he's right up there with all the greats from New Orleans that played Melott, and I'd count Will Clark in that group.
Did he play for the Rangers at one point, Staub?
He did.
did,
In
didn't
the
he?
1980
Yeah,
season,
that's what I
he was hurt a lot of the time, but but I got to know him, and he passed away last year on baseball opening day, and I went down to his funeral and got to see a lot of old friends and
Wow.
see his family, and yeah, that was my hero. And having him, as you know, Richie, having a guy like that you can check the
Sunday
box
paper.
scores
Oh, yeah.
each,
Oh, yeah.
and check the Sunday paper and see where
See
he
where his
was in the
average
batting
was.
average.
Yeah. All right, we'll top that.
I don't know if I can top it, but mine's the hick from French Lick, Larry
Oh,
Joe
yeah.
Bird.
Good one.
No one got more out of less than Larry Joe Bird. Although he was crafty in how he made up for his physical deficiencies. But very disappointed in brother Eddie Bird. He never did meet my expectations.
You like the whole family.
Well, there were some dandies in that family, if you know what I mean. But
All right, so my funny story. My guys were Bob Hayes,
Yeah.
Roberto Clemente, and a little bit later Bjorn Borg. But my first guy was Dr. J. Like the first book report I had to do in school, and I just loved, of course, his afro, and just he could dunk. And you guys remember this. In college basketball until '76, dunking was not allowed. Didn't that sound crazy to modern day fans?
Yeah.
Because of Bill Walton and Lou Alcindor, they were like, we can't allow dunking. They're going to break the backboards.
It's not fair.
And we don't have replacements back. Yeah, it wasn't fair. So when Dr. J dunked in a college all-star game, and I somehow saw it on TV, I was like, that's a superhuman. So in 1971, my dad would take me to Dallas Chaparral's games, ABA, down at the old convention center in Dallas, because the Mavs were still 9 years away. And I told him, I want to go see Dr. J, Dr. J, Dr. J. He goes, all right, we're going to go see Dr. J. 1971. The Virginia Squires are in town to play the Dallas Chaparrals, and it's like just wooden bleachers. You just pay $5, and probably wasn't even that much. Sit on the third row, and I'm excited to see this guy with the fro and the 32 and the colored basketball and the red high tops and the high socks. I'm like, I want to see Superman. And the Virginia Squires run out, okay? And I'm looking for Dr. J. And of course, on the back of their warm-ups, they have their names, right? So Julius Erving, and here's Smith, and here's Jones. Well, this guy turns his back to me, and I'm 7 years old, and I'm 6 or 7, but I'm so excited, I'm not even thinking straight. This guy has sort of Irving on the back of his jersey, but this is who I thought Julius Erving was. This guy's named George Irvine.
Irvine.
But when I saw Irvine on the back of his jacket, I'm like, Dad.
was he sitting outside in a van?
He was in the layup line behind Julius Irving.
He was trying to sell candy to the kids.
For a moment, my dad looked at me, and I was slumped-shouldered, and I probably had a tear down my face. I'm like, that's him? And my dad's like, no, that's George Irvine. And then I saw Dr. J, and he dunked, and I was happy, and life was restored.
George Irvine was not.
But for a moment, I was like, in me right here.
Not
That's
good
him. I'm
He
done.
does not have ups.
No ups at all.
Later on, did you get to meet
Dad.
Julius Irving?
I didn't meet him that day, no.
Later?
Before, yes. Yeah, absolutely. It's still one of my favorites all the
Oh,
time.
this is
But
greatness.
I never got to meet George Irvine either. All right, there's some childhood favorites here on PressBox.
Terrible
DFW.
childhood you suffered.
Wasn't that horrible? I was traumatized forever. What's on the site this week? Got any good stuff up there?
We have plenty of good stuff, and John has a real good story, which was a few days ago that I think really bears reading. It's about the cautionary tale of Sam Norton, who
That's a good one. That's a good story.
Yeah, that's a
'Cause I
real
covered
good
Sam
story,
Norton
right.
at the Shorthorn at UTA, and I remember when he went pro. And I was
a
like,
UTA product who, against all advice except maybe his brother, right?
Father.
His father.
Yeah, his father was LeVar Ball, wasn't he? At the
Yeah,
time.
exactly.
Of his time.
That's what Snake said.
And
Yeah.
what round was Sam?
Never.
No, he wasn't drafted.
He wasn't drafted.
10-round draft in those days.
That's right, a
and he was
10-round
not
draft
drafted.
and was.
He's 6'6". I mean,
They can't handle the
he was
ball.
6'6" with like power forward skills.
no range.
No.
Yeah,
Saw him play Karl Malone on the stage at UTA. How about
yeah.
that?
That's
And he wasn't bad, Sam Norton.
probably better than George Irvine.
No doubt. No doubt.
Elsewhere on the site, Matt Mosley's got a good story today.
Oh, he finally had one, Matt.
Finally, he's due.
Finally,
New theory with Matt.
on the he makes light of the Wonderlic scores. He's got a couple of good stories in there. Richie, your story on the Stars game from last night, but the list that we just went through with the best and worst, and I'm going to tout my story on the NCAA women's gymnastics that I saw over the weekend, and how interesting it was as not just a terrific event in front of a sold-out crowd at the convention center.
It was sold out for real?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I don't know. They may have had 20 empty seats, something like that. But it's very much it was very much commentary on female empowerment and what they're going through nowadays, and it was well worth the time to go out there.
That sports had a
Congratulations
rough
to the
couple
Oklahoma
years.
Sooners.
Very much.
And wasn't that the last? I think I read something from you. That was the
Yeah.
last event at the.
Well,
or some, we're
Probably,
getting close.
maybe not.
Probably the
but yeah,
last big sporting event. Huh?
They're trying to tear down the convention center, and they're moving this to the new arena,
Dickey's
Arena
Arena.
next year.
This
So
our
the-
podcast.
Yeah, this very
well, we will be
Awesome.
We'll do it.
might-
We're going
yeah,
to the
we might
arena.
be there.
All right, we'll see you out the arena
Get
next
the-
year.
get
Hey,
the gear.
this
Get the
studio
gear,
can
Ziggy.
only hope to contain us.
Exactly right. All right, PressBoxDFW.com. Read us daily and watch us again right here next week on PressBox DFW Live. For Gil Leberton, for John Henry, for Douglas MacArthur, everybody, and for the Duke even. We give him a shout out. We'll see you guys in the PressBox DFW.